Season 10 thoughts. Let's do that. I know the perfect thing to do in this situation. I've learned that the best thing to do is go into the training range as Cassidy and walk around the map while I talk about stuff, and then it just pops off. That's the way to do it. We start with Venture. Okay, so honestly, like, I feel like Venture's a really fun hero. I think they will... I don't think they'll necessarily be a meta hero, but I think they'll be a hero that you can play, and, like, I've noticed it. I don't know if people have been noticing it in their rank games. You can let me know, but, like, the backline gets rolled by Venture sometimes. Like, it's absolutely rolled by Venture. Because, like, and you can't even peel for him. You'll be in a team fight, and then next thing you know, your backline's dead, and you're like, there's, like, only one hero I can think of that can consistently peel for that Venture damage, and that's Zarya. But it's hard to play Zarya in current Overwatch or most tanks outside of if you're playing Orisa. So, like, it's, like, one of those things where I think Venture's really fun. I'm really curious to see how, like, backline is dealing with the pressure from Venture, because I feel like that's just one of those issues right now. Very fun hero, though. I don't necessarily think Venture will be a meta hero, but I think a very fun hero that kind of fits right into, like, what Overwatch is with, like, a variety of different abilities and doesn't necessarily have to be, like, point and click. I also think there's going to be players who are really bad at Venture, and they won't be able to do that, and I think there's going to be players who are unreal at Venture, and I think as we get... I think the question on, like, where Venture is in the meta, how Venture is as a hero, is something that you have to, like, evaluate in, like, Season 11, Season 12, when people get better at the heroes. Because right now, I still think players haven't even gotten to, like, that high skill ceiling on Venture. Season 10, like, testing out Clash. I've enjoyed Clash. I thought Clash is really fun. Obviously, they might have to tune it a little bit, but I've had a lot of really, really close Clash games. I'm talking, like, 5-4 Clash games that just end in the middle. And some could argue that, like, the point and spawn makes that difficult, but I also think it adds a very unique comeback mechanic that it feels better. Like, you know, in push when you're down like 108, 30 meters to 2 meters with a minute left, you're generally like, uh-oh, we might lose this. I feel like Clash allows you to have a comeback mechanic, and the game is never over until obviously it is. And I think that's what makes Clash really fun. So I enjoy Clash. It's very deathmatchy. It's very back and forth. I actually, believe it or not, and some people could agree or disagree with me on this, I actually enjoy the map design too. And what I mean by enjoying the map design is I enjoy that, like, it feels like team fights are still winnable when you're down 3v5 because you have so much cover. It takes a while to get the point, so you have the ability to, like, constantly retake the point and do that stuff. So I actually enjoyed Clash. I think there's going to be some changes they make. I think you got to look at, like, maybe the spawn timer on close spawn. But overall, like, I've actually very much enjoyed Clash. I think it's going to be a really cool addition to the game. We'll talk about balance for a little bit of Season 10, how I feel about that, and then, like, the state of tanks, because it kind of, like, goes hand in hand. Balance-wise, this is going to be a hot take, I think. Balance is actually pretty good. The problem is that tanks are the overall issue, right? So that's why it kind of goes hand in hand. The balance is a continuation of Season 9, where Season 9 felt good for a lot of roles. And what I mean by that is this. One, DPS is much better than DPS has ever been in Overwatch. Number two, support was the best role for about, what, 7 seasons? Support isn't as bad as they were at the beginning of Season 1. Not as good as they were in Season 8, but still a very playable and fun role. Obviously, there's going to be some issues and some arguments with that. It's tank that is the problem, because tank is just struggling, right? So I've actually been pretty happy with the balance of the game, and I feel like it's been fun for people to play it. But I feel like the tank balance has been the major issue, and that's where, like, I'm hoping that the mid-season patch will address tanks a little bit. The only concern I've really had with that is it feels like they haven't talked about tanks at all. So I'm like, does that mean that they're, like, super happy with where tank is at right now? They're like, no, like, we're seeing, like, good responses to tank, etc. So that's my one concern there, but I imagine they probably are in the mindset of, like, they just don't know what they want to do yet, so they don't really want to talk about tanks yet because they don't have anything to promise yet on their changes. Well, I think the problem is like, let me ask you this question, and as we're kind of talking about it right now, because you say that when Flats had the interview there, it took a while to, like, respond to the question about tanks. It's like, they can't just, like, immediately have Season 9 launch and then just go right away and be like, okay, we gotta buff tanks again, right? Because then what's gonna happen is they're eventually gonna buff everything back to what it was, except now everybody has extra HP. So they have to find kind of that fine line between what will work and what doesn't. I think overall, the answer to tanking will generally just be, like, finding a way to introduce a passive to make it so they can get healed a little bit more, but not healed a little bit more to, like, Season 8 style healing. More of kind of an in-between of what we see in between Season 8 and Season 9. And then tanks still are gonna struggle a little bit because of the amount of damage you take, so there's a lot there, and I don't think there's a general, like, default answer yet, but I will say this much. If I am playing tank, I would very much not like to feel like I have to play Orisa all the time, which that could be just a niche top 500 issue, but I've heard that Orisa is being played in a lot of ranks. You end up in this, like, gameplay loop of you have to end up on Orisa, and whatever tank goes Orisa, and the other tank doesn't, you end up in, like, a really unique spot. Now, granted, the the win rates may not match up with that, and Orisa gets buffed at midseason patch because everybody's saying how good Orisa is, so everybody's going Orisa, but then everybody's losing on Orisa, so Orisa has a 42% win rate, and they buff Orisa again. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but that could also happen. So streamer mode, absolutely love streamer mode. I think streamer mode has been great. I think it's one of the best streamer modes out there. Could be a bit biased. Obviously, I'm not like, playing Apex and Valorant and testing out their streamer modes and seeing how good they are. But I feel like the Overwatch streamer mode now is exactly what we've been looking for. There's actually more stuff that are super exciting. You could do like randomized icons, although I think they should have that in general. We can like randomize like your icon when you join a game, etc. But overall, pretty happy with the streamer mode. And I hope they keep adding on more like fun names and like teasers in there. Like, for example, we were told that some of the stuff in the current streamer mode names, you won't even know what they mean because it's tied to like a new hero that isn't out yet. So you don't even know what the meaning behind it is because it could be linked to a new hero that we know nothing about. I can play quick play again, which obviously the number one concern for me when it was streamer mode was that when I go into quick play, it wasn't fun for me and it wasn't fun for my teammates because if I'm going in there and they're just diving me 1v5 and, the other team isn't even winning the game or my teammates don't have whatever role I'm on the whole time because I'm just getting dove over and over again, you're not playing Overwatch at that point. So it's been really cool to kind of have that streamer mode now so I can actually play quick play, practice heroes I want to play, etc. So super awesome to see with the streamer mode. Battle Pass, I still think is pretty good this season. Obviously, I think there'll be, whenever it comes into any discussion about like Battle Passes, microtransactions, etc., there's going to be a lot of different various takes. I think it's a pretty good one. I think the Mythic Shop one, I think there's been the back and forth of like, well, look at the prices of the Mythic Prisms, which are definitely hefty up there. I think what they did was they went with like industry standard at that point. And then when it comes to Mythic Prisms, I think a lot of what's going to happen after this season, I think a lot of people will start to see that like with Mythic Prisms, you can start to get like that base level Mythic, and you can actually get every 2 seasons, you can get the base, you can get 3 Mythic skins at the base level, and then people will start to upgrade them, choose what they want. Because like there's going to be some combinations on Mythic skins you just don't like. And I think having the ability to kind of go in there and choose how you want to make your Mythic will be pretty good. Granted, I think there's a lot of different variations there that they could go with, but I do think like it overall will lead to people getting more Mythics. Obviously, if they're getting the premium battle pass, but I think the first season that won't be seen because you can only get 80. So if you get 80 of them and then you buy all the Mercy one, you'll rinse and repeat each season. If you get 50, if you like the base level one, actually, believe it or not, let me just go in here very quickly. Yeah, this is the base level one, and I'll be honest with you. So like for me, like if I didn't have all the other mythics, I may have just gone with this one. I actually do want to get the Skull Mask though, and I think I have it in a second because I'm almost maxed out in the battle pass. The ball rework, pretty fun. I think the shields, it's hard to find really cool opportunities to use the shields, but Wrecking Ball's better now. Is Wrecking Ball going to be S tier? Probably not, but I do think Wrecking Ball is in a much better spot than before. So the issue that a lot of people had with Wrecking Ball, and I've kind of talked about it in like spectatings, is it's called perceived value. And what that means is that like where you always think your Wrecking Ball is doing absolutely nothing, but like from the Wrecking Ball's point of view, they're doing a lot of like really cool stuff. So this new ability they've added with Wrecking Ball kind of adds that. It gives you more of that perceived value. Like if my Wrecking Ball goes in, slams all of them, comes back in and gives my team 75 shield each, you're going, okay, I can see where Wrecking Ball's giving me that value, but you couldn't see the Wrecking Ball value because it's really hard to know what Wrecking Ball's doing to help your team. A lot of really good Wrecking Balls are dominating the back line, but you don't even know what's happening. They may not even show up in the kill feed, but they're interrupting their supports. Like if you're playing support and you play against a good Wrecking Ball, it can be frustrating, right? So the state of ranked, and I think this is the obviously a major part of this season. We can talk about this very quickly. And by very quickly, I'll probably talk about it for like 5 minutes. If you're a solo queue player, your experience has probably gotten a bit better. I'm not saying it like fully, but like now you're playing against less stacks. You're playing against like the way they have the system set up is a solo queue. You might have a bit of a better experience. You might have better games. Like it's going to feel a bit better because you're not constantly having those mismatches of like, oh, I'm a solo queue player with 4 other solo queue players going up against a 3 stack and a 2 stack, right? That can still happen, but it's lessened now because players are using the wide queue. But now going to like the wide group queue times and like all of that, that's clearly an issue, right? The issue, the reason why, by the way, the reason why you're seeing 2-hour, 3-hour, 18-hour queue times in top 500 and what the issue is that they make it so that no matter who you're duoed with, let's say that you're GM5 and you're duoed with a GM5, they put you into a wide group. Okay, so now what's the problem with the wide group at that point? Is that most players are going to duo, right? If they're going to actually make a group in GM. Problem. What happens if you have a wide group that is a duo stack in GM? You can only have a 3 stack create the next game. So unless the other games are doing the same thing or they're doing a 5-stack, you're not going to get a game because you need a 3-stack. So that's the problem, though. Let me go back to what I'm saying with the GM games. Is the problem is that because the players are forced to wide queue even at duo at the exact same rank, they're not getting games because you need a 3-stack, because you can't 4-stack. You can't get solo players when you're wide queue. What they need to do is they need to increase the range that you can duo with, that it doesn't give you a wide queue range. Now, let's go to the plat side of it. And I say plat side because plat players will be like, hey, I'm playing with my silver friend and I'm getting an hour queue. That is also a problem. And what probably needs to happen is they need to increase the range of the games that you get. And what I mean by that is maybe it's looking for only a plat versus silver, but what happens if it looks for a plat versus bronze? Well, that goes to the next level of, do they want to do that? How will the game quality be? But at the same time, when you queue up for wide queue, it tells you your games are going to be scuffed. Good luck, right? So that should reduce queue times, or maybe it won't. I don't really know. But I think that's what they have to do, is expand the range of what a wide queue game looks for. Otherwise, I think you're going to get those really long queues. Players clearly want to be able to play with their friends, right? And the last thing that Blizzard wants to do is make it so there's only one queue system where it's basically the Wild Wild West, and you can queue up with a GM player and a bronze player, and that's ranked. They want to create two different things within the same rank system. But clearly the range isn't currently working with that, with the wide queue. So I think they need to be able to increase the games that they're looking for their players in the wide queue, which in theory could result in more games. Keep in mind, I don't know how the back end stuff works with that. I don't know how the algorithm works. I don't know if it's algorithm, sorry. How their systems work, if that would even make queues happen a lot more. But obviously the current version that they have of wide groups is a little bit scuffed, and improvements are probably one of the first things they're trying to make a increase on, right? One thing is for sure, with the wide group system, you're going to get increased queue times. But it shouldn't be you're waiting, 20 minutes, 2 hours, 20 hours, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Now, how do you solve that issue? That is a good question. I don't know. That's why I kind of offered what I think could help. It doesn't mean that it will help. It doesn't mean that I'm correct on that one. I do like the option of playing with my friends again. And when it comes to designing those type of systems, it's not as simple as you change one number and you're good to go. It takes a lot more, right? One thing they change in that, and then they can change one thing in the matchmaker and it breaks 20 more things, right? It's not as simple as hit this number, you're good to go. Having a blueprint is the best start to making these systems a lot better, right? Give you an example. The blueprint at the beginning of Overwatch 2, when they launched Ranked, was not going to be a good blueprint. You couldn't build off of it. There was nothing they could do. It wasn't a simple fix. So Overwatch Ranked for a year did not feel that good or rewarding because it just wasn't, the system didn't have a good blueprint. Season 9 created a good blueprint, and now they can build off of that. Season 10 introduced another blueprint that they now need to build off of and fix. Does that make sense? Having the good systems in place and then building off of them is good for Overwatch. It's just going to take a bit to figure out the wide group one. Is it just prioritize wide queues for 5 minutes, then resort to queuing normally? And that would still create the only problem that would probably happen there is that it would still make a bad experience for players who are solo queue, right? What they're trying to do is alleviate that problem for a solo queue player. That's why you can't 4-stack, by the way. The reason why you can't 4-stack is because if you do a 4-stack wide queue, it would require one solo queue player to be able to deal with that. And a lot of players will tell you this much. If you're the solo queue player in a 4-stack game, you could be 72-0. If they lose, you're getting blamed. So they're trying to take away that aspect of forcing solo queue players to have to be in the 4-stack games. That's why they have it be, if you're a duo wide queue, you have to have a 3-stack wide queue in that game, etc., right? That's why I don't think they'll do after 5 minutes, they'll put you into normal queue again, because then you're running into the same, issues and, hoping for the best with that. That's the hope. We're hoping.